recording first. Okay, right? So let let me give you a quick overview of what we have done so far, right? So we are doing the first topic of A2 economics, which is economic efficiency, right? And we have already discussed that efficiency is important in any country because it doesn't want to waste its resources. Because if you're wasting your resources, this means that you will not be able to maximize your output. If you're wasting your resources, you will not be able to maximize your output. So you don't want to do that, right? And to avoid wastage, what you need to achieve is economic efficiency, right? Then we talked about that there are two components of productive efficiency, which are allocative and two components of economic efficiency, productive and allocative efficiency. So we will not go in detail of these two components because we've already discussed in detail in yesterday's class that what is productive efficiency, what is allocative efficiency. Productive basically refers to output over input. So when you're maximizing your output for each unit of input, that is productive efficiency. And allocative efficiency comes from the word allocation of resources. So allocative efficiency is about producing goods that are most wanted and in the right quantities, right? So we also looked at the graph for both these two components of efficiency. Okay, then towards the end of yesterday's class, we said that there are scenarios, right? Situations, circumstances, whatever you want to call it, where economic efficiency exists, and there will be scenarios and circumstances where economic efficiency doesn't exist. Circumstances where economic efficiency exists, right? Okay, now students, within that we said perfect competition is one case, right, where complete economic efficiency exists. Perfect competition is one case where complete economic efficiency exists, right? And there would be other scenarios, other situations where economic efficiency doesn't exist. And we used a term to define this situation, and that is known as market failure. So situation where economic efficiency doesn't exist, that is known as market failure, right? Easy? Are we good on this? Okay. So think about this. So let me write this down, perfect competition. And we did identify some cases of market failure. Obviously, we haven't discussed it yet. We'll come to it at a later point. But the cases of market failure, some of the cases include monopoly, where there's a single producer, or even if there is not a single producer, there's one dominant producer with a very high market share. Then some other cases of market failure include externalities. What is externality? That is when you are doing something or someone is doing something which is causing a positive or a negative effect on the third party. So if I do something that causes positive or negative effect on the third party, that would be defined as externalities. And there are a couple of examples for that. Let's say someone is smoking in public area where other people are around and they inhale that smoke, which is passive smoking, and that is also harmful. That is one externality. If someone is driving fast on the road, so that can create safety hazard for the people around him, right? So all of these are negative externalities. Okay, then yesterday we did start off our discussion about perfect competition. So what we will do moving forward, let me give you a quick overview, is that first we'll talk about what is perfect competition and see how perfect competition has efficiency, and then we will move on and talk about cases of market failure and see why economic efficiency doesn't exist in these cases. How economic efficiency exists in perfect competition, that is what we'll discuss first, and then how economic efficiency doesn't exist in market failure, that is what we'll discuss later. Okay, now let's get started. Okay, now students, we said perfect competition is a market where there are a lot of firms, right? So the first characteristic of perfect competition would be a market where there are a lot of firms. Okay, that was the first one. Then another important characteristic of perfect competition is, right, firms produce homogeneous goods. Firms produce homogeneous goods, which means that these products are identical, right? Firms produce homogeneous goods, which means that these products are identical, right? And there is no element of branding, right? And there is no element of branding. Okay, now think about this. which market structure, which market did I say is close example or good example of perfect competition? Which market did I say is a good example of perfect competition? Can you recall from yesterday's class which market is a good example, right? Agriculture, exactly, vegetable, or let's say agricultural overall, basically. Yeah, food items. Very good, perfect, excellent, right? Even fruits, vegetables, food market, right? Why? We will see in a bit. But you can tell just by knowing, by your own knowledge, right, that there are a lot of firms, right? So what we mean by firms, basically producers, right? So there are so many different farmers and producers in Pakistan who produce, and similarly for any other country, who produce fruits and vegetables and all that stuff, right? Similarly, all the products are homogeneous. You can't differentiate. There is absolutely no difference, right? And therefore, there is also no branding element. There's no brand, right? I did explain you in detail what brand you already know, right? What a brand is, right? Very good. Now, moving forward, another thing that we talked about was that there are no entry and exit barriers. No entry and exit barriers. Now, you have to listen to this carefully. In perfect competition, it's very easy for new firms to enter the market. In perfect competition, it's very easy for new firms to enter the market, right? Now, what is an entry barrier? What is an entry barrier? Entry barrier is anything that makes it difficult for new firms to enter. Entry barrier, let me write this down for you. Any constraint, any barrier that makes it difficult for new firms to enter the market. Can you give me some examples? We did discuss some examples yesterday that makes it difficult. Yeah, makes it difficult for new firms to enter the market. For new firms, that makes it difficult for new firms to enter the market. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, now some of the examples that we discussed yesterday, high investment requirement, very good, Preet. Existing firms that are well established in the market, absolutely, right? So some examples of entry barriers would include high investment requirement, right? High investment requirement, right? Now think about this. What is investment requirement? In some industries, you require more finance, more capital, more money to start off that business, right? So a simple example of that could be a telecommunication industry or I don't know, a car manufacturing business, right? Are you getting me? So if you compare a car manufacturing business with something as a restaurant or something like an online teaching platform, right? So you do not need that much of investment in in a restaurant or in an online teaching platform as compared to what you need to set up a car manufacturing business, right? Yes, legal constraints. I'm coming to that, right? So legal constraints, legal barriers include things like copyrights, piracy, right? Legal constraints, right? Legal constraints, right? Which includes copyrights. You must have heard the word copyright is basically when someone has intellectual property rights. Intellectual property is an idea. It could be an idea, it could be, sometimes it can be a product as well, right? But that person has the right to produce that product, right? And patents as well, right? Patents, absolutely, right? Copyrights and patents. Very good, perfect. Okay, there was one more thing, and that is competition from well-established firms. Noor, just give me a second. I'll give you an overview that what we are doing in today's class, because I think you missed few previous classes. We just started our session, but we did have few sessions before this, so we have covered some topics, but I'll give you an overview. Competition from well-established businesses. Okay, now just give me a minute. Well-established businesses. Okay, so this is the very first topic of A2 economics that we are discussing, which is economic efficiency. So before this class, we have talked about the definition of economic efficiency. For now, what you can understand is that efficiency means making best possible use of resources. Economic efficiency means making best possible use of resources and not wasting anything. Then within economic efficiency, you have two components, productive and allocative efficiency. What is productive? Productive is when you maximize this formula. When you maximize this formula, which is output over input, this means you have productive efficiency. What is allocative efficiency? Allocative efficiency means producing goods that are most wanted, right? Goods that are most wanted in the economy, right? Most needed or wanted, right? And the second condition for allocative efficiency is producing optimal quantity. Optimum meaning appropriate. Producing optimal quantities of these products. Optimal might be a new word for you, but optimal just means appropriate, right? Suitable. That is what it means. Producing optimal quantities of goods. Optimal quantities of good, right? And as we'll proceed forward, you'll get to understand what that is. And after that, we said that there are few cases where economic efficiency exists. There are few situations, scenarios where economic efficiency exists, and there are few situations and scenarios where economic efficiency doesn't exist. So a scenario where economic efficiency exists is perfect competition. Now we are defining what perfect competition is, right? How it looks like, what it is about, right? And then we will come to the graph. We will also look at the graph of perfect competition, but after this. And then there are situations where economic efficiency doesn't exist, and that is monopoly. Monopoly is when there's single producer in the market, right? When there's only one firm. So if I have to give you an example, WAPDA. WAPDA stands for Water and Power Development Authority. So this is electricity producing company or organization, as you can say, in Pakistan. And that is the only company in Pakistan that manufactures. That is the only company in Pakistan that manufactures electricity. Students, are you getting me? Are you following me? Right? So these are the scenarios where economic efficiency doesn't exist, but we'll talk about this later, right? So we're not going in that detail for now. Okay. Now, what is perfect competition? Firstly, there is a market where there are a lot of firms, a lot of producers, so agricultural goods, right? So ideal example of perfect competition is agricultural markets, right? That would include like producing rice, cotton, maize, right? Fruits, vegetables, right? So that makes a good example of perfect competition. So what are the characteristics? What are the features that define a perfect competition, right? So first of all, you need to know that there will be a lot of firms and producers. Firms produce homogeneous products. Homogeneous means identical. Identical, exactly the same. If you think about it, all the agricultural products produced in Pakistan, like the same type of product, looks like the same, right? So whether you are growing wheat in Punjab or you're growing wheat in Balochistan or whatever part of Pakistan it will taste the same, it will look the same, yes or no, right? And there is no element of branding. There's no element of branding, right? This means that you don't know. You go to shop and you say, "I want to buy apples" or "I want to buy oranges." You don't say, "I want this, this brand of oranges." There's no brand like that. Are you getting me? Okay. Then we talked about that there are no entry and exit barriers. What is an entry barrier? Anything that makes it difficult for new firms to enter the market. So just imagine if there is a lot of competition from well-established businesses, right? It makes it difficult for new firms to enter because they are afraid that they will not be able to survive. When you go to shop, there are so many different brands, but still a lot of people have preference for Coke and Pepsi because that is one brand that they have grown, that they have seen growing up, right? And they are more comfortable with that. Similarly, there are legal constraints. Legal constraints means anything that prevents you to copy a product, right? So COVID vaccination was, I don't know if that is patented or copyrighted, but if something is copyrighted, you can't copy it. You must have read in the news that Apple sued Samsung for copying a design, Samsung sued Apple for copying their technology or things like that, right? So these are copyrights. And then high investment requirement. If something requires very high investment requirement, then uh, that is also a constraint, right? So this is what it means that in agricultural markets, if you think about it, it's really easy to enter agricultural market. Why? Because you just need some small amount of investment to start your own business, right? You need to have a piece of land. Agricultural lands are not very expensive. You buy that land, you, even if you don't buy, you can rent it out and then you can, grow your product and sell it and so on and so forth. So entry barriers, and there are no entry barriers, right? As such. Okay. Now moving forward from here, right? There are two more characteristics that we talk about. Price. Now this is a very important point and I want you to pay attention. Firms are price takers. price takers. Now, what does it mean to be price taker? Now, listen to this very carefully. Think about this. If you go to a shop, now listen to me. If you go to a shop and you want to compare two shampoos, so you're considering either to buy Sunsilk, and let's say there's another brand of shampoo, I don't know, Sunsilk, Head and Shoulders, right? Okay. Now, if you find out that Sunsilk is more expensive compared to Head and Shoulders, is that very surprising for you, or is that not very surprising for you, right? So if this bottle costs you, let's say 300 rupees, right, and the bottle of Head and Shoulders costs you 250 rupees, so my question to you is, or 220 rupees, my question to you is that very surprising for you to see this, or is it not very surprising for you to see this? You may just answer it in yes or no. Surprising, yes. Not surprising, no. What do you think? Just give me your opinion. It's surprising. Preet is saying it's surprising. Okay, fair enough, fair enough. What about other students? Simple question. Would it be surprising? Would it not surprising? Okay, let's take a better example over here. Let's take a better example over here. Huda is also saying it's surprising. They are tough competitors. Okay, okay, okay. What about Apple and Samsung? If there's a difference in the price of these two brands, is that very surprising for you? Or is that not very surprising for you? No. Interesting. Brand image. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, now students, forget about this. Okay, the thing is, yes, it should not be surprising for you to see that the price of Apple is higher or lower or whatever, right, compared to Samsung, because these are using different technologies, right? Similarly, I have not included other brands in the comparison. So let's say Huawei is a Chinese brand that manufacture phones, and then there are a lot of other brands recently, right? Q Mobile, I don't know, there's so many others, right? So coming back to the point, that since these are different brands, technically they can charge a different price. I repeat myself. If you are a different brand, even though the product might be very similar, you can charge a different price for your good. Am I making sense or not? When you go to Gloria Jeans, when you go to Coffee and Bean and Tea Leaf, and I don't know, so many different names of the coffee shops, Starbucks and so on, right? So their coffee is way more expensive compared to a lot of other coffee shops. But people think it is justified because of the fact that it is a different brand. They are using some special recipe, some, I don't know, some special coffee, I don't know, whatever, right? Students, are you following me? What I'm trying to say over here? Is this making sense to you all? Right? So if you are a different brand, BMW is more expensive than Toyota. BMW is way more expensive than any other car brand. But why? I mean, I'm not talking about the reasons. That is, since there is a difference in the quality, since there's a difference in the facilities, features, whatever you want to call it, brand image, that's also correct, right? So you don't think it's unfair. How many of you absolutely clear with that? But let me give you another example. You go for grocery, and let's say your mother or father or whoever finds out that one vendor is selling apples more expensive compared to the other vendor. Would your parents be fine with it, even if the difference is 5 rupees, 10 rupees? Normally, what do you expect your parents to do? How do they respond? They're not fine with it. Right? Most people will not be fine with it because of the fact that apples in Pakistan or apples in India or any product that is the same across the across the board, that should have the same price. Am I making sense or not? Students, am I making sense? Ask me if yeah, they will go for the cheaper one, obviously, because we are assuming that quality is the same, the product is the same, then the price should also be the same. Yes or no? Right? So coming back to the point, that is exactly what it means, that firms are price takers, right? And a further line I would want to add over here, firms are price taker and no single firm can influence the market price. And no single firm can influence the price. Huda and Noor, is this making sense to you? Firms are price takers and no single firm can influence the market price. Can influence the market price. Is this making sense to you? Think about this. Let's look at this one more time. Let's take one more example and then move forward. Okay. So price taker means that whatever price is determined in the market, whatever price is determined in the market, that is the price at which you will sell your product, right? Have a look at this. So let's make the demand supply diagram. Let's make the demand supply. Okay, so think about this. So you have, as you have always seen, you have price per unit on the y-axis, you have quantity demanded on the x-axis, quantity demanded and sold, right? So quantity of the product on the x-axis. Okay, so downward sloping is your demand curve like this. Downward sloping is your demand curve like this. Let's label it as D1. Upward sloping is your supply curve like this, right? So where the demand and supply curve for a product intersect, that is the equilibrium point. Is this making sense? Right now, this is market demand curve. How much is the total demand for, let's say, vegetables in Pakistan? That is your market demand curve. And how much is the total supply for vegetables in Pakistan or any other country, right? That will be your market supply. And where the market demand is equals to market supply, that is your equilibrium point that will show you how much will be the price of each unit of the good, how much will be the price of each unit of the good, and how much quantity will be sold in the market. How much quantity will be sold in the market. Is this making sense, students? So what I'm trying to say with the point that I mentioned over here, that firms are price taker. Whatever price is prevailing in the market, that is the price at which you need to sell. So if this is the market for, let's say, tomatoes or potatoes or whatever it is, right? And each kg is selling for 100 rupees in Pakistan, right? Right? So if it's selling for 100 rupees in the market, then every vendor, every seller will have to sell it for 100 rupees, because we just discussed that if you're charging a higher price, no one will buy from you. Yes or no? But this is not what happens in the case of a brand. So if tomorrow you come to me and you say that I have found another online platform in India or in China or in Pakistan, right? And they are charging less compared to what we charge. I mean, I would be like, yeah, perhaps they are charging less, but I mean, we know we are better quality or whatever, blah, 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 right? So it will not be too much of a comparison then, right? But if I'm selling the same apples and whatever, right, as anyone else, then there is no point in me charging more than that. Is this making sense? How many of you are absolutely clear? These points are really important, and that's why I'm stressing on it. You need to tell me if you're understanding so that I can determine the pace of the class. Okay, very good, perfect, perfect, excellent. Okay, now the last of the characteristics, the fifth and last characteristic says, right, that consumers have complete information. So consumers know what I was saying right now, right? Consumers know how much is the price of each unit of the good, right? Complete information. So think about this. I don't know how it works in other countries, but in Pakistan, when you go to this farmers market, is a more fancy name that you use. But in Pakistan, I don't know if you will be able to understand or not, Itwar Bazaar, or whatever, right? Where you have all the vendors selling fruits and vegetables and all these things, right? So there is a market rate. There's a market rate that is put up by all of the vendors. It is a requirement of the authorities, local authorities and all that. And you can't charge a price different from that. So what I'm trying to say is that consumers already know that how much is each unit of the good selling for, and you can't hide it. You can't hide it, right? So consumers have complete information, so you can't cheat or you can't deceive consumers, right? So they know exactly how much a good is for. Easy? This is making sense. So these are the 5 characteristics. Let's go over these characteristics one more time and then we'll move forward. Okay, so we said that perfect competition is a market where these characteristics are true. What are these characteristics? Let's have a look at this. There are a lot of firms, or producers. Firms are producing homogeneous goods, similar goods. There's no difference in those products, and there's no element of branding. There's no element of branding, right? No entry and exit barriers, so it's really easy for new firms to enter the market. Firms are price taker. They take the price. The price taker meaning whatever price is prevailing in the market, that is the price at which they will sell their good, as I just showed you, right? So with the market demand and market supply of the good are equal, that is the price at which you will sell your good. That is the price at which you will sell the good. This is making sense, right? Then the fifth and the last assumption, characteristic, whatever you want to call it, says that consumers have complete information. So you can't cheat consumers. They know exactly how much is the price and so on. Okay, now if everything is good and there are no questions regarding this, then move forward and look at the graph for perfect competition. Now, this is something that is very important, and a lot of times this concept is tested on your exam. So you need to be absolutely clear how we make the graph for perfect competition, right? So shall we get started? Okay. Now I will basically make two graphs, right? And one would be of industry. One on the left hand side is for the industry, and on the right hand side I will make it for the firm. Do you know the difference between a firm and an industry? How many of you know the difference between a firm and an industry? Right. So what is an industry? When I say industry, what do I mean when I say an industry? Okay, so right. Industry is a group of firms. Absolutely, absolutely excellent, right? So industry is collection of firms that are producing the same product, right? Collection of firms that are producing the same product is an industry. So when I say Pakistan textile industry, I mean all the firms in Pakistan that are manufacturing textiles. When I say sports industry, I mean all firms in Pakistan that are manufacturing sports equipment, right? Entertainment industry, you must have heard the word entertainment industry. So all the musicians, singers, actors, movies, blah blah blah, they are entertainment industry. That is how it works. Healthcare industry, all the hospitals, clinics, blah blah blah. Education industries, all the school, tuition academies, online teaching centers, blah blah blah, right? So that is what you need to know. Okay, so you have on the y-axis, sorry about that, right? So on the y-axis, this is quantity. Okay, you have price and the cost. This is for the firm, right? And on the x-axis, you have the quantity. So this is always how it is, right? So on the y-axis, we will be showing the price and the cost. And on the x-axis of the graph, you have the quantity of the good, like how much quantity is being produced. Is this simple, students? Is this clear? Can we move on? So industry is showing you the situation of all firms, all farmers, all agricultural producers in Pakistan or any country for that matter. And in the case of firm, it will show one single producer, Are we good? Can we move on? Is everything is clear? Then we can move on. Okay. So for the industry, the first thing that you have to do that we have already discussed is you will show the market demand and market supply. So how much is the supply in the market for a certain product? So let's be more specific over here. So let's say we are only looking at the market for tomatoes, right? Is this making sense? Right? So we are only looking at the market for tomatoes, right? Okay. So how much is the total demand in Pakistan by our citizens, by our nation of tomatoes? And how much is the total supply of tomatoes in Pakistan by different producers, different farmers and all that stuff, right? Is making sense? So where supply and demand are equal, that will determine the market price. Am I making sense to you? Right? So where the market supply and market demand are equal, that will determine the price of each kg of tomatoes, right? Let's say it's 100 rupees per kg. How much is it? 100 rupees per kg. This is simple. Is making sense, right? Is this clear? Right? Now comes in the main part. As I said, that no single firm can charge a price higher than this. No single firm can charge a price higher than this. So that means what? That the demand curve in perfect competition is a straight horizontal line. Do you remember in AS you talked about straight horizontal line? So if the demand curve looks like this, who can tell me what it shows? What is the elasticity for a demand curve that looks like this? Who can tell me? You must have studied this in unique cases of elasticity. What is this type of demand curve called? Do you remember or have you forgotten? Perfectly elastic, absolutely excellent, right? So this type of demand curve is known as perfectly elastic demand curve, right? And it has elasticity value of infinity. It has elasticity value of infinity. Students, are you following me or not? Right? Okay. Now, what it actually shows is that you can sell any quantity. You can sell any quantity of the product at this price. So you can sell 100 units of the good, you can sell 200 units of the good, you can sell 300 units of the good, but whatever it is, you cannot change the price. You cannot change the price. Is this making sense, students? Is it making sense? You cannot change the price. So price will be fixed, but you can sell as much as you want to. So this is perfectly elastic. Now, why is the demand of each firm? So why is the demand curve for each firm perfectly elastic? Because I said that there's so many substitutes. There are so many substitutes. When you go out for grocery shopping, you will see multiple vendors selling the same product right next to each other. Right? So many vendors selling the same product, exactly the same product right next to each other. So that is what makes the demand perfectly lasting. That is what makes the demand perfectly lasting. If anyone has any confusion, please ask me. Okay, if this part is clear, then I'll move forward a little forward from here. Okay, now this being said, very good, excellent. Okay, now moving forward from here, now I will make some other graphs. Now this is important and this is a little tricky. Do you remember we talked about marginal cost? We talked about the concept of marginal cost, when we discussed allocative efficiency. Now, this is interesting. Marginal cost is the additional cost of producing one more unit of the good. Marginal cost is additional cost, like the change or the increase in cost by producing one more unit of good, cost of producing one more unit of good. Is additional cost of producing one more unit of good. Is this making sense, students? Okay, so what is marginal cost? Marginal cost is additional cost. Marginal, wherever you see the word marginal in economics, do remember marginal means additional. Additional cost of producing one more unit of the good, right? Are you getting me? So we did talk about this. So if you think of tomatoes, right, it might be difficult for you to imagine what will be the additional cost of producing one more tomato, right? Because that is the additional unit, right? But the thing is that obviously it will require some additional seeds, it will require some additional labor and so on, right? So this is such a small product that you can't really imagine what the marginal cost is. So an easier example of that would be, think of a table, think of a wooden table, or think of a cell phone, right? So if you have to make one more cell phone, the company has already made 100 units of cell phone and you have to make one more unit of phone, right? Then it means that you will need to have more raw material. So that one additional phone will require some additional raw material. Do you agree with me? It will require some additional labor hours. You will need some people to work on that machines and so on. The machine that you're using to produce cell phone will require some electricity. Am I making sense? Right? So these are some additional components that you will need to produce that additional unit of the good. And that is exactly what marginal cost is. Now, you might be wondering why the shape of marginal cost looks like this. But the thing is, we will talk about this thing in more detail in unit 2 when we will come to the types of cost. So when we discuss this concept of types of cost, we'll discuss this topic in more detail. So we don't need to worry about it at the moment, right? So for now, just remember that marginal cost will always be a J-shaped graph. Marginal cost will always be a J-shaped graph, not exactly J-shaped, but I mean a little like this, right? This is how it is. Easy. Any confusion so far, students? Any confusion so far? Anything that's not there? So this straight demand curve, this is your demand curve. This is also showing you the price and one more thing, marginal revenue. Now you would be wondering what the hell is this marginal revenue? This is a new term that I've introduced, right? What is marginal revenue? Let me tell you, right? But you can try it. Let's give you some time to guess it first. What is marginal revenue, students? You already know the word marginal means additional. Marginal means additional. Now, if you're using the term marginal revenue, what can you guess out of that? No guesses? Excellent, excellent. Absolutely, absolutely. That's absolutely correct, right? So marginal revenue means additional revenue earned from selling one more unit of the good. Additional, right? So additional revenue earned by selling one more unit of the good, right? So think about this. Additional revenue earned by selling one more unit of good. One more unit of good, right? Okay, so if you sell one more phone and let's say what is its price, so let's come back to our original example, right? So if you're selling each kg of tomatoes for 100 rupees, so each additional unit, let's say we are taking kg as a unit, so we are taking kg as a unit, right? So how much would each additional unit give you in revenue? That is your marginal revenue. So if the price is fixed at 100 rupees per kg, so each additional kg would generate how much revenue for you? Each additional kg will generate how much revenue for you? Obviously 100 rupees. Obviously 100 rupees. Is this making sense or not? Students, is this making sense or not, right? So each additional unit will generate 100 rupees in revenue for you, right? We will revise these concepts again in tomorrow's class, right? So don't worry about it. But for now, let's try to look at this. Okay. And the last thing that you need to add on the graph is average total cost. Now, average total cost would look like this. Your average total cost would look like this. Sorry, I will need to change this a little bit, right? Space is a challenge, right? So this is your marginal cost, and then you have to add your ATC, right? ATC is your average total cost. Again, for those who took my initial classes would know that average total cost shows you the cost of producing a typical unit of the good. The cost of producing a typical unit of good is known as average cost, right? So if I have to show you, what is that called? Right? The formula for that, right? So average total cost is total cost divided by total output. Total cost divided by total output, right? So think about this, total output. So if I have to calculate the average total cost for this class that I'm taking, right? So let's assume what is the total cost that I'm spending, right? Or mega lecture is spending, right? So since this is an online teaching platform, it doesn't use a lot of cost, but obviously electricity, my home is using some electricity for that, right? We are looking from business perspective, right? So it uses some electricity, right? Mega lecture is paying me salary for this, yes or no? Are you getting me or not, right? So let's say these are the two expenses that we have to pay for this online teaching class, right? And how many students do I have in this class? Let's say 3, right? So if the total expense per month is, let's say, I don't know, 50, 60, 70,000, whatever you want to imagine, right? So if let's say that is 70,000 rupees per month, and I have a total of 3 students in my classroom, so 70 divided by 3, not good with maths, that should give you 3, and then that should give you 333, right? Yes or no? I hope we did it correctly, right? So that makes 23,333 rupees per student, right? Right? This is making sense, students. So on average, we are spending 23,333 rupees per student. Okay, now have a look at this. Before the class expires, I'll not be sending you a new link, and I don't want to rush through it, but we will have extra classes over the weekends to, make sure we are going fast. And tomorrow we will have a class approximately same time, right? And then we'll continue from here. I don't want to, give you too much content in one class, which is hard for you to absorb. And then we have a YouTube channel which you can follow, where all of the lectures are uploaded. Just go on the YouTube and type mega lecture. You will come across our YouTube channel and subscribe it, right? There you will see lecture uploaded the next day, right? So I'll see you in the class tomorrow. I'll share the timings in the group tomorrow morning, right? So do that, right? And we'll continue from here. So I don't want to rush through it, right? Easy? Is everyone good with this? Right? So I'll see you tomorrow.